When I started this work, I was in Chicago, Illinois, and I was in university wanting to be a doctor. You know, Nigerian parents now, they want you to be 4 things, I think: doctor, lawyer, engineer, accountant. So I wanted to be a doctor. So while I was in undergrad, I was working for an organization at the time on the south side of the Chicago, like in the deep south side of Chicago. How many of you have heard about the murders and the crime that happens there? So they sent this young Nigerian African whippersnapper door to door to do surveys to find out what the community needed. What were the needs of the community? What were the issues? So I found that a lot of them were selling drugs. Okay? And I said, okay, why are they selling drugs? They said, we don't have any jobs. There are plenty of job vacancies. What do you mean that you can't find a job? They said, well, we have a felony on our record. And in America, it's not like Nigeria. They don't forgive. If you have a record, you can't get a job. You can't even vote. So that was when we now came up with legislation on the sealing of records of low-level non-violent drug offenses. And from there, I now worked with an organization and was building the organization from scratch. I was part of a leadership team. I was less than 25 years old when I was doing this. And we're working with the leadership team. We had a budget at the time of about $120,000. And then it went up to about 3 million in about three to 4 years. Okay, so after that, I worked for an education think tank and realized that the America I was staying in was an average nation in math and science when it comes to kindergarten and 12 years old. When you're in the non-profit sector, you know things that nobody knows. You get what I'm saying? In Nigeria, you guys are in the non-profit sector, and yes, we are saying this is the condition of the country, but you now know the underlying root causes of some of the conditions in the country. So we now figured out that America was average, and I was staying in Illinois. Illinois was average in an average country. So if you're average in an average country, what are you? You're quite below average. In fact, that was one of my inspirations for coming back home, because I said, listen, I don't want to train my children in a below average system, okay? I want them to be able to compete. So that was how I came back to Nigeria, and I wanted to be a civil servant. I did. You people are shocked. I wanted to be a civil servant. I wanted to go home, come to work, 9, 10, 11 o'clock, leave at 1, 2 o'clock, do my side business, retire, and be quiet. That was my plan when I came back to Nigeria. Doesn't it sound like a good plan? It sounds like a pretty decent plan, right? So when I was the country director of Junior Achievement Nigeria, I was a part of a restructuring of the organization. We had to restructure the place. Governance, finance, human resources, grant writing, the types of fundraising strategies that we needed to go through, okay? At the time, I was in my early 30s, early 30s. My son was 9 months old when I was doing this. In fact, that's when I started really coming to Abuja, because I was in Lagos. I was really coming to Abuja, to the Abuja office. And I worked with the likes of Accenture Nigeria on strategic planning, with the likes of Stanbic IBCC. I was working directly with the group head of human resources in the whole Stanbic IBTC to work on restructuring the organization. The organization at the time had a staff strength of 35 people, Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt, Enugu, and Jos. So So I now had to work with this organization. And it was a great experience. It's not easy pleasing executives. So it's not easy pleasing executives. These are group heads, you understand, executive directors, some MDs. I actually personally met John Momo. I met the MD of Stanbic IBTC, even the chairperson. And I think there was an event I was at with Junior Achievement. There were five bank chairmen in that event. So I was exposed to corporate Nigeria very quickly, okay? Then I wanted to do advocacy. You know, you people know I'm a very big fan of advocacy, reform, systemic reform. So I said, okay, let me move on to other things, organizations that would help me really exercise those skills. And then that's when I worked with the National Democratic Institute. How many of you have heard of NDI? They're here in Abuja. Okay, so I was hired as their expatriate team to work on advocacy. Did that for some time, and I've been a consultant ever since. Now, let me give you a caveat. When I was working for NDI, I was going around the country, meeting with various passionate non-profit founders like you. That's why you all are very dear to my heart. I met you all caring about your country. Do you understand what I'm saying? Caring about national development in your own way, based on your lived experience. You understand? Everybody has a lived experience. I just explained my lived experience. Okay? Each and every one of you, if I tell you people to come to the mic to talk about your lived experience, you would say you have a different story, but the same lens in terms of I want to make a change. Okay? So that's pretty much why I decided that I wanted to do this, because there are organizations that have good concepts but don't know how to relate out to donors, don't know how to relate out to stakeholders so that they can get what they need. I was sitting down with donors looking at proposals that were badly written. You understand? Looking at proposals and them saying, we want to work with this organization, let's help them kind of cut and join and do this and do that and do this. That's sitting from the lens of the donor, not from the person writing the proposal. So what this seminar is going to talk about, we're going to highlight what you need to have with foundation. You understand what I'm saying? I know not everyone is Christian, but there's a scripture that says that when the foundations are destroyed, I'm sure there's a similar one in the Quran. If the foundation is destroyed, what will the righteous do? So if your foundation is bad, how would you be able to get funding? Do you understand? So you can't just be so eager and say, I want to get funding, and then you do a bad job, a shoddy job. They talk to themselves though. They are colleagues. Please, my alumni, raise your hand. Raise your hand, raise your hand, raise your hand, raise your hand. You all were at that panel discussion where donors were saying it. They talk to themselves. Do you understand? So we need to do this right. Start well. Okay? That's what this is for. A couple of things. If you're not following me on Social Impact Consulting on YouTube, you should. Go on your YouTube app or your phone and follow Social Impact Consulting. I have videos there that will teach you about running your nonprofit. I'm working on a project called the Executive Discussion Series. I will be discussing with successful nonprofits in this country, and they'll be telling you how they did it. And their stories will be different. I intend to travel from the length and breadth of this country to talk to passionate executives that are doing the work and that are making impact. I've already interviewed a couple now, and the interviews are